What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and today we'll be finishing up the most recent Rogue-related beta news with the Kyrian Covenant changes and the buffs to Echoing Reprimand, which I firmly believe happened because I totally called Ian out on his Kyrian Rogue statement in a prior video. Whether I'm right or wrong, the world may never know. But let's see what the Blue Boys of Bastion have in store for us with these recent changes. As a usual forewarning that I do in beta testing videos like this one, tuning is ongoing, so anything and everything can change very quickly, just as a heads up so as to keep an open mind about what's going on in beta. Also, any additional notes or things I forget to mention will be in a pinned comment to this video, because hamster brain. So, Kyrian Rogue. What was once a meme is now currently simming as the best overall covenant for rogues to choose. But why is that? Did Echoing Reprimand now become some face slapper of a move overnight? Well, seeing as this video is coming out on a Wednesday, I'm sure by the time it's up there will be a nerf to it because the builds usually come out on Wednesdays, but no, it honestly isn't that amazing of a move even now, though it is a lot better. There have been a few buffs to make it much more worthwhile to use, so I'll be going over those in this video, as well as a nerf to the Pelagos Soulbind tree that I had been curious to get my hands on. So we'll get right into this discussion with the buffs Echoing Reprimand has received. For those who don't understand the Echoing Reprimand ability, I'll explain how it works really quickly. Echoing Reprimand is a combo point generator that costs 10 energy to cast, and is on a 45-second cooldown. It generates 3 combo points, deals damage, and causes one of your combo points to become anima charged for 45 seconds. What this means is that if you spend exactly that many combo points on a damaging finishing move, that finisher will function as if you spent 7 combo points on it. Anima charging can occur on your second, third, or fourth combo point. If you don't use this effect within 45 seconds, it will go away. As an additional, possibly unintentional benefit, you can also trigger Find Weakness with this ability as subtlety if you use it from stealth or during Shadow Dance. I'm not entirely sure if this is intentional or not, but it is good to know if this is an actually intentional part of this move. The original version of Echoing Reprimand did about half of the damage and cost 30 energy, so effectively triple the cost for half the damage, hence why it wasn't really that good. It also only caused your damaging finishers to deal the damage of a 7 combo point equivalent, whereas now it calculates the move as if you had spent 7. Well, what does that actually do to change anything, Zara? I mean, the damage is the same, is what I can imagine some folks saying. The difference is very noticeable for Outlaw and Subtlety in particular. For example, in prior iterations of this ability, if your number 2 combo point had become anima charged and you used it, you would deal the damage of a 7 combo point finisher. However, your cooldown reduction effects would only take into account the 2 combo points that you actually spent. This means with the new version, you actually get more cooldown reduction for both Outlaw and Subtlety. Cooldown reduction is of course always a good thing, as it allows for more Shadow Dance casts as Subtlety and more damaging cooldowns in general as Outlaw. Things like the True Bearing Roll the Bones buff for Outlaw or the Enveloping Shadows talent as Subtlety of course increase the potency of these extra combo points being spent as they translate into even more cooldown reduction. However, if you were looking at Echoing Reprimand just for its damage on details, it doesn't really seem that high. Generally in single target, it has been around 2 to 3% of my overall damage on average. This of course doesn't factor in the extra cooldown reduction or the more potent finishing moves, which is why it's something you might not see as being too potent at face value. The Reverberation Conduit, which increases the damage of Echoing Reprimand, is definitely something we'll want to consider in the future, as it's possible this might become strong enough to make it a viable third potency conduit depending on how simulations look. This is mainly due to the fact that the damage of Echoing Reprimand has been increased by basically 125% of its original value, which increases the value of this potency conduit by quite a bit. Of course, tuning and such will determine this, so this is just something to consider and keep in mind. Due to the various ways each spec of Rogue generates combo points, the anima charged effect of Echoing Reprimand can have mixed feelings in my opinion. While there are often ways you can force a certain number of combo points to be earned, such as using Shiv or Gouge or Poisoned Knife or Shuriken Toss or something like that, it means you'll be using extra GCDs just to get this exact number of combo points to do that higher damaging finishing move, which kind of defeats the purpose of the burstiness of this move since you're using more GCDs just to line this up correctly. I will say, from the playing I've done with it so far, that it feels best to use it when you only have 0 or 1 combo point depending on what spec passives you might have for combo point generation, as this gives you an extremely high likelihood of it landing on one of the 3 possible anima-charged combo points. Also, you have a whole 45 seconds just to land on this certain number of combo points, so the likelihood that you won't is really low. So, I mean, it can feel a little annoying if you're trying to get it to occur immediately, but it's still something you can kind of work around. As I mentioned in my Necrolord video from yesterday though, Covenant abilities are not all that make a Covenant a damage increase. And for the Kyrians, there is one very apparent issue: Pelagos. I brought this up in my Kyrian Rogue video that I did prior to these changes, but I'll cover it really quick. Basically, of virtually all the Soulbinds of the Kyrian Covenant, and honestly all of the Soulbind characters in the game, Pelagos is by far the most potent. I'll elaborate why this is the case. For most Soulbind trees, you have a path of choices that allows you to have various combinations of conduits. Conduits are socketable bonuses that you can put in your Soulbind trees at various locations. Each conduit serves a different purpose, and they're divided into 3 types. Potency, which are our DPS and healing throughput bonuses, Endurance, which are our defensive bonuses, and Finesse, which are generally utility-oriented things. Each Soulbind tree has multiple paths you can take, but one path will always allow you to pick all 3 of your potency conduit slots. In most character Soulbind trees, there will also be a stat or damage boosting option, like how Clea has a critical strike bonus for staying near your allies, or how Mechanicos gives a stacking haste buff for each new enemy you attack. However, both of these Soulbind effects have limitations to them in terms of position and duration uptime, and on top of that, they require that you skip a potency conduit slot just to use them. However, Pelagos offers 2 stat bonuses, and both of them are always accessible regardless of what path you take. Let Go of the Past is literally the first bonus you get from Pelagos as a Soulbind, and he's the first Soulbind you earn as a Kyrian. This ability makes it so you gain a stacking 1% versatility bonus that lasts for 10 seconds for every move that you use, as long as it isn't a repeat of the prior move. This stacks up to 5 times, and it is virtually a 100% uptime as long as you alternate moves once every 10 seconds, which is virtually guaranteed as long as you're hitting something and doing your rotation normally. At the end of his Soulbind tree, you also have Combat Meditation, which gives a 5% mastery bonus for 20 seconds when you cast Echoing Reprimand. It also makes you expel these blue orbs called Sorrowful Memories, and for each one you pick up, it adds 3 seconds to this buff. Generally, it seems to spawn about 5 orbs, though a 6th one does appear right at the end of the buff, so it might be possible to get a total of 18 seconds out of it. This means that it would have a total uptime of 35 to 38 seconds. However, before you get too excited, there was an internal cooldown put on this mastery buff effect in the latest build. It can now only occur once every minute. This means to take advantage of the mastery buff every time you cast Echoing Reprimand, you'll need to wait 1 minute between casts. Otherwise, if you use it immediately on cooldown, you'll get the mastery buff from Combat Meditation every other cast of Echoing Reprimand. I am no super theory crafter or anything like that, but I'd imagine it'd be the smart thing to do to wait the full minute between casts so you can always get this stat bonus, though this is just an idea I'm fiddling with in testing and haven't really seen a huge difference either way currently. Maybe if you were running a really high rank version of the Reverberation Conduit, you would want to use Echoing Reprimand immediately, but it's kinda hard to say right now and tuning is still continuing. For me, there is at least 2 things I can say about the Kyrian Covenant and Echoing Reprimand as of now. 1, Pelagos will undoubtedly have some tuning done to his Soulbind tree, as it's pretty obscene to have 2 stat % bonuses on your beginning and end tier effects so that you can still pick up 3 potency conduits. Whereas virtually every other Soulbind in the game has to make the choice of 1 less potency conduit to pick up their unique damage or stat modifier. While there has been a minor internal cooldown put into effect for the Combat Meditation ability, a flat 5% damage increase that has an effective 100% uptime is definitely far beyond any other Covenant effect, even ones that have a higher % increase since they generally have some longer duration cooldown attached to them. 2, and this is kinda personal preference, Echoing Reprimand is still not exactly my favorite Covenant ability to use due to the combo point minigame thing, but it's honestly relatively non-invasive to your gameplay and it really just needs a simple weak aura to keep an eye on effectively. Since it's on a 45-second cooldown, unaffected by cooldown reduction in any spec of Rogue, it's not something that steps on your toes or uses a lot of GCDs like Serrated Bone Spike does. It also gives a very large amount of time, 45 seconds, for the anima-charged combo point to be used. Even if you don't end up using the anima-charged combo point for whatever reason, you'd eventually have the Combat Meditation Soulbind talent which you can extend the duration of from picking up the little Pac-Man style power pellets and get a mastery bonus. It also does work with Blade Flurry, which is a bit of a plus as Outlaw, and currently it is applying Find Weakness if used from Stealth or Shadow Dance, as I mentioned earlier. It does seem to have a few bugs and hiccups at the moment, though those are outside of the scope of this particular video. Overall, I'd say that outside of Pelagos being such a strong Soulbind character, the Kyrian really aren't quite as overpowered as some might lead you to believe, as really, anyone with a 5% versatility buff with 100% uptime would make it a strong Covenant. I don't anticipate this staying as such for long, hence why I always warn to keep an open mind about changes that are coming. I hope you folks enjoyed this look into the Kyrian Covenant and the changes made to both it and Echoing Reprimand. For those of you new to my little corner of the YouTube universe, I'd like to welcome you to come check out the rest of the channel. I do new uploads every weekday on a variety of content, with a major focus on rogue-specific stuff, especially during beta. I'd also like to take a quick moment to thank all of my regular viewers, commenters, subscribers, and especially my patrons for helping make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.